Oh, we're recording now.
Yeah.
That was a good start.
That's a great
I'm allowed to say that.
Welcome to another episode of Ashley Haden's Political Breakdown, a fun show for everyone. This week has been particularly fun, like Game of Thrones, but more people are getting fucked. My guests this week are...
Chester Constable.
And...
Chaminda Jayanetti.
Fantastic. Right, let's start with the fucking awful, boring shit, shall we?
You said it so well.
Dominic Cummings has done a new reshuffle. Our Prime Minister, Dominic Cummings... has done a new reshuffle. I mean, the idea that this was Boris Johnson's idea is just wrong. This was pure... last week, didn't Dominic Cummings say to a bunch of spads, I'll see half of you next week?
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
This is...
Man.
jokingly. Like, turns out, not a joke. He meant it. Absolutely meant it.
Jesus.
So it started, like, the thing is with the reshuffle, the big news and what everyone focused on was Sajid Javid. Because Sajid Javid was, he resigned because they said you can keep your job as Chancellor as long, yes.
Yeah.
And
Fire a bunch of people.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so he's been replaced by Rishi Sunak.
It's not that hard to say.
I
Rishi
needed,
Sunak.
I needed to remember it.
All of 4 syllables.
I needed to know his fucking name.
It's all right.
I
He's not Sri
apologise.
Lankan. He's not Sri
I
Lankan.
apologise. I do not know the name of every single person. My good God in heaven. Why do you think I asked you two to say your fucking names? I don't know who the fuck you are.
Just pulled us off the bloody street.
I've known him for years. I still don't know his name.
Don't know my last name. Oh, yeah.
So, what are our views with the reshuffle? Have they brought in anyone of use at all?
No. Is the short answer. I mean, it's strange because last week, and until the reshuffle really, quite a lot of government decisions were going against Dominic Cummings. For example, the decision to continue with HS2, which was something that Cummings wanted scrapped. Mm-hmm. And there were suggestions that his influence might be on the wane. And these kind of sort of, presidential advisors almost. Hilton under David Cameron, Nick Timothy under Theresa May, have a tendency not to last very long, mainly because they're A, cranks, and B, have zero people skills. And the same certainly goes for Dominic Cummings. I think part of the reason why he's got his way here is because what Theresa May wanted to do when she was Prime Minister is basically increase public spending, wind down the austerity kind of we must cut the deficit, which is the sort of thing that's been dominating the government agenda since 2010.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He wanted to cut that down, but her Chancellor, Philip Hammond, didn't let her. Nope. We need to stick to the deficit reduction targets. And that's why the 2017 election went so badly for the Conservatives. Because Theresa May was saying, we're going to be the government of the people, and she sort of trailed that they were going to put more money into things like the NHS, and then she wasn't able to do it. And so what's happened this time is that they've decided, right, Sajid Javid wants to stick to the deficit targets they set out in their manifesto precisely 2 months ago. We don't want to do that because manifestos are just bog roll to us. And so they've basically got in a yes man, Rishi Sunak, made sure that Cummings' advice, is likely to be what goes, and they'll be able to spend more money on the things that they regard as voter priorities.
Well, what's really interesting about it is now what they're going to do, or supposedly what they're going to do, is instead of number 10 and number 11 having separate advisors, they're going to have joint advisors.
The Avengers. They've teamed up.
Yeah,
They've
so
teamed up, yeah.
It has been for a long time that they've had separate advisors, but now they're going to be doing together. So Boris Johnson, or Dominic Cummings, is going to be... the idea that Boris Johnson has any ideas is a lie. It's an absolute lie. He does not have a single idea.
Is megalomania an idea?
No, it's not. It's the only way he can get erect. That's it.
Well, massive horniness, is that an idea? That's a feeling,
Is
I
that
suppose.
what he says when he gets
More
erect?
than a feeling.
Megalomania.
This is the thing. Boris Johnson doesn't have any ideas. He just likes the idea. No, he likes
The cable
idea.
car. The cable car was a great idea.
He's a fan of ideas.
One person uses it a year. and that's Boris Johnson, so he got somewhere to cry
sure it's-
alone.
It's a
Make
worse
sure it's still
advert
working.
for the Emirates than the Emirates human rights record.
Yeah, it's fucking madness.
I watched his speech after the reshuffle when he
Yeah.
it was like a kid leading or a teacher leading a bunch of kids in a sort of.
Oh, does the-
How many buses are we gonna build? 4,000. That's correct, you little Jimmy. How many hospitals? 40. Yes.
What-
It's like,
what needs
these
to-
are these are my leaders. These are my.
What needs to happen before we do all start getting worried? Because he's literally doing call and responses on lies in the cabinet. What more needs to happen before even Tory voters go?
Yeah.
This is worrying.
He says immigrants have rights. That's when the Tory voters will worry.
Because for me, the worst pick out of everyone that's come in is we're talking about human rights. Is Braverman,
Yeah.
who so we've got Geoffrey Cox was sacked as Attorney General,
Okay.
and Braverman has come in to replace him, and Braverman's opinions seem to be shocking.
Right.
I mean, she wants to take back control from the judiciary, which seems to me like taking back control from the law.
Yes, that would be correct.
It's such a
back control
weird
from the law.
thing to say.
Yeah.
Because she thinks that judges are too political. And she wants to stop judicial activism, which is the likes of
decisions?
Gina Miller and
Joe Moore,
yeah.
the fox beating guy.
Yes. Oh, what a great Christmas that was. That was so much fun. But that was Christmas. We can't
He
talk
was
about
just
it.
bored of roast turkey for Christmas.
If you either die a hero or live long enough to kill a fox. It's the two things.
Foxes are getting cocky where I live, I think. Actually, there are foxes now sunbathing on cars when I'm walking home.
on
fuck
cars.
On cars. They are lying on cars when I'm walking home.
What
And that's
weird
fine. fucking
This is what happens when you ban
Mr.
fox
Fox
hunting.
world
I know,
do
right?
you live in?
Exactly. Right? I didn't know they could do that, and it's definitely they see me and they don't even flinch. As well. I'm not saying
This is what
I'm not
people
saying they
want.
should be, but I'm just saying that they definitely used to run away from me.
This is what happened. They banned fox hunting, and now the foxes got too big for their boots.
exactly
In
what I'm
20
worried
years'
about,
time,
right?
they will just be running the country, and they will be hunting us.
I think there's going to be gangs of them. I think I'm going to feel uncomfortable when I turn a corner.
How does that make you feel with your own confidence and self-worth when a fox isn't scared of you?
Certainly feel conflicted because I'm like, well, maybe I should be scared of them. You know what I mean? Like maybe I should treat them like I would a bunch. If I saw people sunbathing on a car, maybe it would be I should be concerned. But at the same time, like, oh, but it's foxes, and if I feel afraid of them, it means that I maybe it's not fair. Maybe I'm not being fair to foxes. Maybe I'm just scared of them because I don't
They're
understand. You know what I
foxes,
mean?
not you.
It's-
Fuck is this?
I'm just a bit like I get all.
Maybe they're
maybe
like
this is
this
normal
because of austerity, and they've taken away all the things that foxes can do after school.
That's
Like, what
it.
the fuck is
If you
this?
had more, if you had more community centres for foxes,
Yeah, they did
they
cut-
wouldn't sunbathe on cars and cause trouble.
They did cut child fox credits, and that's really pushed a lot of foxes below the poverty line.
But you mentioned about austerity and the idea of like Theresa May wanting to stop austerity.
Well, wanting
yeah.
to wind it down
Yeah.
in certain areas.
But even with all of that, and the talk of Boris Johnson saying austerity is over and all of this stuff, it's lies.
Yep.
It's because recently Boris Johnson has asked all of the well, this was before the reshuffle, so they're going to have to do another letter. But asking everyone to find at least 5% worth of cuts. So
outside
that money,
NHS and defence and I think
yeah,
police.
so that money can be used for the big ticks, but that's still austerity.
Yeah.
This is the idea that just because they're giving money to hospitals, schools, police, which they should do,
Yeah.
they certainly should do, but. And we're not even talking about the continual cuts that are coming in this year, next year, and the
Yeah.
year after that are already written into the budgets.
Yeah.
Austerity isn't ending.
No, and one of the key things actually is that because of all this talk about Cummings and about Sunak and all this sort of thing, this is what the political reporters are focusing on. When the budget finally arrives, it's going to have these big headline figures. We're going to put this much spending in, this much spending in here. What's going to get buried, I think, at least in the initial response and analysis, is going to be, is this money actually enough? Because the money that they're pledging to the NHS at the moment is not actually going to be enough. I mean,
No.
it's a lot, but it's not going to keep up with increasing demand, particularly when social care is in crisis, which then increases the demand on NHS. So you don't really have a lot of this focus on what's actually necessary. Instead, you end up with this focus on the politics of it.
Oh, I mean, but that is all. That's what every budget has been throughout. All you need is to have a look at fucking anything that George Osborne ever did, and it was always cut. We're going to cut 1p off of beer, and everyone's going. And then at the front page of the Sun is always beer's cheaper, and so are pies. Go on, you fat cunts. But this is it. And so that's what everyone continues. Journalists. Do journalists have as much to answer for as I fucking think they do?
Yes, I'd agree.
Yeah, because with everything, the severe amount of what we allow the government to get away with. One of the main reasons we allow them to get away with is about education and the lack of knowledge that's being spread around. Now, I understand that we're currently fighting an uphill battle because you don't have as many newspapers wanting to say anything that makes their readers not happy. I mean, it's one of the reasons, and because of circulation as well, the Telegraph this week have asked W.H. Smith to move their paper from newspaper to magazine. I think it should be moved to puzzle.
I think it should be moved to bog roll.
It's a Kinder Surprise.
It's literally just a crossword, a Sudoku, and some comics. That's it. That's all the Telegraph is now.
Yeah, it's a shocking state.
But it's a shocking state of affairs because the people are to blame at this point as well because of our want for free stuff. Now that all newspapers are online and everything else, we don't go out and buy newspapers. We rarely buy local newspapers, and local journalism is the bread and butter.
Well, it was. I mean, with local papers, what happened was that they got taken over in the 80s, and a lot of the smaller ones got taken over in the 80s and 90s by these massive conglomerates, merged them together, cut the budgets, cut the funding. Some of the bigger local papers, like, say, Manchester Evening News, are still going pretty strong, but a lot of them were just either put out of business or just driven down.
Liverpool Echo, is it Liverpool Echo?
Liverpool Echo.
They're doing very well.
Yeah, Liverpool, Yorkshire Evening, Yorkshire Post. London Evening Standard's an appalling newspaper. But
I mean, that is fucking bog roll.
Yeah.
And what annoys you have people come up. I read this thing in the London Evening Standard today. Don't fucking carry on. Right? Unless you're about to tell me something about sport, I don't want to fucking hear it.
Yeah.
I would love to catch you reading the Evening Standard on a tube and just smirking throughout.
It's one of the things. I don't read that. I don't read the Metro. I'd rather read the fucking Daily Mail. If I'm going to read bollocks, at least I want it from someone who can edit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the fucking Evening Standard, their editor was Osborne. Go blow it out your hole, mate. You think I'm reading that fuck?
It's interesting what you say about free stuff. You can now access newspapers online for free. Same with like music and videos and things.
Yeah.
But I'm one of these people. I think you talk about that. How we pay the price is adverts and things like that. When you're reading online, you got to click away all these adverts and things. So I think people, even though they're
ad block,
but they're getting all these things for free, and people are no doubt they're still unhappy. Don't worry about it. We're still very unhappy because we're having to click away these things, and if you're listening to music, you're having to wait for this advert to finish.
Yeah, but then
so we're
you've
still
got
very,
sponsored
very
content.
miserable. Yep.
And this is one of the
exactly
issues
like
with journalists like BuzzFeed, who just sometimes do useful stuff. A lot of it is fucking sponsored content.
Yeah.
And it's the same with even The Guardian do fucking sponsored content.
Yeah, no one reads it though.
No.
I mean, I don't know if people read The Guardian and stuff, but I mean, in my own experience, nobody reads the sponsored content because the moment you realise it's sponsored, you just click past it.
But I think I am fully aware of why they are there, and they need to be. This is why you're watching it. This is why you're not having to pay for anything. This is why you're reading this article for free, because of this. This is the stuff that comes with it. You do have to click this stuff away and things.
Well,
but you still go after a few years. You take it for granted, and you're like, oh god, I don't see why they can't just.
Some sites do it better than others.
Stuff.
Some sites do it better. It's when they have all the adverts down the side, and they've got the videos opening up in the middle, and the moment you load it up, there's another video copy, and you can barely use the bloody thing.
The Independent is fucking dreadful for that.
Yeah.
having to go onto an independent article online, and you're there going, oh, well, okay, so you've got like 98 ads starting, and the sound's on. Why is the sound on? I'm not even looking at the advert. Fuck off. So you need to roll up and go, fucking right, which one of these is making noise? Then you smash your laptop and burn the fucking world. Listen, if you're going to play an advert, fine. But stop making me hear it.
I have a conspiracy theory that when you're scrolling on your phone through an article, and then you get down to when you try and scroll down further, there is a bit of a delay in the rest of the content loading, and then when you try and double tap it, that's when the advert appears, and you don't know what it is yet because it's not loaded yet, but you tap it, and then you go, oh, here's the next bit of the article, and then the advert appears. I'm fairly certain there is some sort of agreement between the adverts and when the page breaks on the site for mobile phones. I feel like they're like, we'll get them there, we'll put it in there, and then they'll click on the advert by mistake.
I don't know about that, but certainly. Yeah. I mean, but to go back to the thing you raised, I mean, in terms of, facts and fake news or whatever it is, look, there were, these sort of problems existed long before everyone got their news for free. So, I mean, the Sun and Hillsborough, I mean, this sort of thing, public attitudes towards Hillsborough, if you polled public attitudes towards Hillsborough in 89 or 90, I suspect they will tell a story that a lot of people want to forget.
Yeah.
And even with the Iraq War, there was a huge propaganda offensive. And this was in the era of paid-for newspapers and healthier newspaper finances in many ways. It's simply an unhealthy relationship between certain newspapers, certain politicians. I
don't think it's necessarily fake news. I do
biased
think
news,
it is.
however we put it.
I would say that they write what they believe is a better story for the people that.
They tell people what they want to hear.
Yes, exactly. And so with Hillsborough and everything else, and the Iraq War, they wanted to have the narrative of we're doing the good thing here. And so they're able to mould the story into getting people to go, oh no, because I read this, so this must be in a better fucking, this must be better than what this people are saying, because I want to believe. Confirmation bias is also a big thing in it.
Yes, it's a huge thing. And it's, if you're telling people, particularly if they're predisposed, if people are predisposed to a certain viewpoint or understanding, and this goes for everyone, it will go for you, it will go for me, it will go for everybody who reads The Guardian. It will go for most of the people who think they're above all of this. Is that people see something that chimes with their instincts.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we take Brexit for example, you're delighted to hear this come up.
Do you hear that noise?
Yeah.
That's the Cave of Wonders.
I mean, this is one where there's been a huge amount. I mean, of outright lies and God knows what. But there's two things. First of all, public opinion was shaped by 20 to 30 years of media reporting on Europe in a particular way very often, and also a very long tradition of British exceptionalism as we stood alone in the war, etc., etc. So this sort of thing. But also another huge element of it since 2016 has been the fact that George Osborne, during the referendum campaign, was going around saying, this if there's a vote to leave, there's going to be a recession, there's going to be a crisis, there's going to be a punishment budget, and all the rest of it. It's going, house prices are going to collapse, which, by the way, is a reason why some people actually voted for it. And all of this, and then of course it didn't actually happen. Now there's a whole load of Remainers come up with a whole load of counter arguments, but the point is this: people were told, you do this, this will happen, and then people did this, it did not happen. So what's been going on for the last 3.5 years is, as people who voted to leave feel vindicated, and every time there's a warning, oh, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, you get Project Fair because, thank you very much, our worst Chancellor, George Osborne. Yep. And, the stuff that he was coming out with was basically nonsense, but people who planned to vote Remain in 2016, a lot of them believed it because it fitted their view.
Yeah. We're not going. I'm not even going to say anything on Brexit. Fuck Brexit, mate. Absolutely ram it up the up.
It is an illustrative example.
Yeah, there is something on Brexit that while we were talking about the reshuffle with the new Northern Irish Secretary.
Oh, God.
Because
Brandon Lewis.
one of the weird bits, because the Northern Irish Secretary was Julian Smith,
Okay.
who managed to negotiate getting Stormont going again,
The power
which
sharing.
was quite impressive, and people actually liked him in Northern Ireland, which is strange for a Northern Irish Secretary, really is, because normally Northern Irish Secretary, they seemingly they go, right, who knows fuck all about Northern Ireland? You're it. Come along.
That's not true. They don't know fuck all about Northern Ireland usually. They could barely find it on a map the last few years.
Yes.
Isn't that a kiss of death
with
job?
Karen Brady, fuck
Bradley.
me. Bradley.
Karen Brady's
Brady.
somewhat quite different.
Oh yeah, she's the West
And
Ham
Karen
one.
Harsh
Harsh but fair. Harsh but fair.
I
Karen
mean,
Brady.
imagine wasting your time suing me. Jesus wept. I mean, the fame I'd get off the back of it.
Suing Ashley Haden, yeah.
Karen Brady, if you're watching, please do sue us.
Yes, I need to write a new Edinburgh show. But the new one is Brandon Lewis,
Okay.
who said either in December or this week, one of the two, I can't remember, I think it was December, but he said that there will not be a border across the Irish Sea, which is a lie. Yeah, there will be.
No.
And so he's the new Northern Irish Secretary, and he's going to do badly.
I heard they're thinking
Yes.
of a bridge between Scotland and Northern Ireland, and this has been frowned upon.
Yes, I don't think we should talk about another one of Boris's bridges, mainly because it's bullshit. It's one of the things that he likes to say when he's run out of things.
Bridge? There's always a bridge.
Yeah.
People will never get bored of bridges.
Well, it's like
Building bridges.
it's like you're on a date.
Yeah.
And you've run out of things to say, so you go to your go-to.
Which is,
and
yeah.
his go-to is, how about a bridge?
What's your go-to, by the way?
What's my go-to? Tell me someone, I'll tell you why they're a cunt.
I will break them
I
down.
mean, this is a date. I feel we're on a date.
I will break them down. Yeah.
It's just my go-to with anyone, really. It's my.
That's what the Evening Standard doing.
It's my party trick. Name anyone at all. I'll tell you why they're a cunt.
Nelson Mandela.
Oh yeah, well.
Oh, now
on.
I've got something, but not today. Not today.
Not today, Satan.
I don't.
I'll tell you afterwards. I'll tell you later.
I'll tell you when there are no cameras about.
He's got some dirt. He's got some dirt on Mandela.
Oh, wow.
Not even I'm
some
that much of a fucking
Insider.
knobhead.
Is this, hang on, is this in the Me Too category of stories?
No. No.
Did you have previous with
in the Me Too category of stories, I would have gone for Gandhi.
Oh, yeah.
But,
He was done.
He's known for this, is he? Is this? I mean, we going to talk about it now?
Gandhi used to prove how morally wonderful he was. He used to go to sleep with young girls next to him.
I see.
And in the morning, they were checked to show that they were still virgins.
Oh.
And all of that makes my skin crawl.
Yes.
Because not only who's checking them, which is a worry at the first point,
What would
the
they
fact that he would do it. What a weird thing to say.
What's the name of that job title? The person who does that. What do you do? I am a
I don't know.
content inspector.
What was?
That would make Gandhi the content editor.
What was Rolf Harris's job title?
He drew Bugs Bunny.
Can you guess what it is?
He drew Bugs Bunny. That's all he did. Yeah.
I mean, I think we've not only have we not really covered the reshuffle, but I don't think we can go back if we require.
One thing I do want to say on it is Cummings has brought in an advisor who is on record as being, shall we say, rather favourable towards eugenics.
Toby Young?
Not far off that. Andrew Sabisky. He gave a talk at he was scheduled to give a talk at a conference on eugenics that I believe was cancelled, not the one that Toby Young was scheduled for, which blew up. And also, his view, I think, is that intelligence. These guys are IQ fanatics, and I think his view is that intelligence is primarily driven by sort of inheritance. And if you gave people the choice of different sort of DNA types or whatever, and for their baby they would pick the smart one. This sort of thing.
I mean, it's weird because you, as you say, like you're right. Like him and Dominic Cummings. Dominic Cummings massive on IQ, and I don't know about yourselves. I always find that IQ is one of those things that knobheads
Thick
use.
people go in for.
Yeah, just go, oh mate, my IQ's 154. Like I don't give a fuck, mate. I do not care because
you still burnt the pasta, mate. You still burnt that pasta. Like, I don't go on the back foot now, aren't you?
you still can't pick how much rice is too much rice, can you?
You're still incapable of having a functioning conversation with another human being.
You still haven't looked at me. Still looking at my shoes, pal. Yeah.
It's just going like no scientist, no fucking philosopher, no artist, no one that anyone actually listens to, who all of these supposed IQ fanatics quote, ever mentioned their fucking IQ.
I like the IQ
None
fanatic
of them did.
thing. Yeah.
Stephen Hawkins never went, well, here's my theory on black holes. Also, my IQ's this. He
Thank God you're not trying to do
Before
the
I talk
voice.
about this, let me make one thing.
I really try to do people's voices.
We don't do impressions on this show.
No, impressions is some of the lowest form of comedy. That improv sketch.
That'll be the one I know you're in trouble if I watch one of these and it's like, do you have any impressions, right?
Well, it's going really bad.
You can tap dance, can't you?
I could do an impression of Helen Keller.
You've been on
holiday,
haven't you? God. But I heard that Dominic Cummings wanting to cancel GCSEs as well. He wanted to.
Did he?
Years ago, he wanted to get rid of GCSEs. I assume it was all kids were just going to take IQ tests instead or something? Is he? Oh no, he's not the IQ fanatic, is he?
No, he is. Yeah,
He's the IQ
oh,
fanatic.
he's massive. Yeah, he does like entire fucking things. There was a long read in the Guardian today, last week by some fucking hero who read all
Stefano
of his.
Collini.
Yeah, who went and read all of his most of his blogs, so
which
no
are
one else
about
had
10,000 words long each.
And you're there going, mate, you spent all of
That's not a blog.
January reading his fucking blogs. You're there going, that man needs a day off. Good God. That's how you get mental health issues.
I'd like to know how much he was paid for this article, by the way. I mean, were they paying him a word rate just at the end of it? It's like, 30p a word. We're not paying you for research time.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting thing. With regards to, I mean, you've written for lots of different publications. Have you written for The Guardian before?
Guardian Observer, yes.
Yes.
No.
Do they pay you research time, or is it just like per word, or just the article?
Time. I mean, I'm a freelancer. I don't get paid research time. No, I get paid by the word. This is why. I mean, I do try to do reports.
Yeah.
Usually off the back of things like data or freedom of information requests. I also write comment articles, analysis articles, and the fact is that there's not many freelance reporters. The ones who are freelance reporters often either very, very experienced, been around for like 20 years, or they sort of a foreign correspondent stringing from abroad, filing for different publications. But otherwise, they're either doing feature articles or they're doing comment, and the reason is basically feature, lifestyle, etc. Pays quite well because the articles are longer. And comment, it's just, put it this way, Guardian, I think, is paying about 30p per word.
Okay.
Which is why I sort of resorted that figure earlier. Now, if I'm doing a report based on, say, freedom of information request, I've put that together over the course of a month, on and off. Not, a solid month of work. But it's been, put together on and off. It is quite a bit of work, especially if you're going to, say, local councils. There's like 150 local councils. There might be 320 local councils, depending on what level you're going at. Whereas if I'm writing a comment article, that's taking me about 2 or 3 hours to write, perhaps. And yet the word rate is the same. So when you see a lot of these sort of, pundits, commentators, columnists kind of doing the rounds, writing all this stuff, part of the reason is because it's a lot easier to make the numbers add up doing that, because you're basically getting a lot more money per hour you put in.
Is that why most comment writers are very verbose and really string out the fucking sentences?
No, that's just because they got their heads shoved up their asses.
Do you ever try and get away with a very, very? You ever try and sneak a very, very?
Or just write like
Just at the end.
just write like Henry James or Charles Dickens. Just 70-word sentences.
Just describing
10
literally every...
subclauses. To describe the weather outside and the trees and the field.
If you use the same,
I'm
if you
writing
use the
this
same
on a
word.
Sunday. It's crisp, cool. Some would say bitter.
But if you use the same word in the article, if you use it for a second time, does it go down to 20p?
do you reckon that a comment section is like just a minute?
No deviation. Except no deviation. They accept deviation.
Just going along.
Now,
No
what is?
repetition,
Make
no
sure you
deviation.
make sure you don't use any apostrophized words. Wasn't is was not. There's there is.
But do you have a word limit as well? Or
Yes. Well, they give you sort of a guide
don't
limit.
don't do 10,000. Yeah.
Yeah, sadly not 10,000. But I know they give you a sort of guidance, but you can go over. I mean, they'll cut it back, but sometimes they'll do it shorter in the print edition because they've got a limit on space.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then run the fuller length version, in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And obviously. Not in the newspaper, sorry, on the
Online,
website.
yeah.
On the website, and then they'll pay per word based on the website length.
Okay.
And obviously, I would never ever write deliberately long for the website.
Let's get out of the way.
Cut
Let's get
some of it
this
for
out of
the
the
print,
way,
and then you can run it to the website. I would never do that. That'd be thoroughly dishonest and Machiavellian.
Right, let's go on to...
It's amazing what you can say when you know nobody is watching.
Well, thank you very much.
that's why we're here.
I mean, you're quite right. You're quite right.
Yeah.
But when we start marketing this, or some people will watch...
When you get the marketing budget.
When he gets a sponsor.
When he remembers his mum's email address.
Your mama, Joe.
Listen, my mum watches this.
She criticise it?
Oh no, she seems to enjoy it. I like the fact that my mum likes it. You know,
it's nice.
Shout out to me mum.
Shout out
She's
to
a lovely woman.
Hey,
So she is.
everyone has their
Lovely
porn
Mrs. Haden.
stash.
She loves her son, and I love me mum.
He's going straight past that.
The planned deportation flight. Let's go on to that
This is
one.
Jamaica.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Court of Appeal said that the flight couldn't go ahead. The flight went ahead, but the government say that they...
Some of the people didn't go
yes.
on it.
So it was meant to be like 50 people. They ended up sending over 20 people back, and according to the government, all of these people deserve to go back. I mean, that is literally it. So the question, these deportation flights, are they just an excuse to get people of colour out of the country? Because you'll notice that very rare, or if ever, there has been a deportation flight sending, say, Rolf Harris back to Australia.
Well, I should butt in there because although certainly there haven't been any high-profile flights to what I call white majority countries, there's certainly the figures show that there certainly have been in the last few years. I think thousands of or hundreds or maybe thousands. I can't remember the exact numbers, but there have been quite a lot of deportations to European countries.
So the answer to that would be that no, it's not just a racist thing. It is happening. It just happens that we care more in the papers if we're getting people of colour out.
You'll be delighted to know that it depends.
Listen,
so we'll fill up the rest of the airtime with this.
Yes, but the depends bit is one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons I like doing this particular show, because nothing that we talk about is going to be as simple as yes or no, and because that's everything.
Except whether Dominic Cummings is a cunt, which is
Dominic Cummings is a cunt. Yes, we can all agree with that one. But with regards to these flights, now, what was interesting with it is regards to who they say should and should not go. Whether or not, how long you've been in this country, if you've got a fucking passport. I know the Jamaican government aren't happy about some of the people that are being sent back over to Jamaica because they do not feel that they should be being sent over, and I think they said that the UK government has lied to them about certain things, and a lot of this was owing to the fact that since January, the mobile phones that these prisoners were given to contact lawyers, loved ones, stuff, they were with O2, and in a particular area that they were in near Heathrow, the signal wasn't working.
Okay.
So
It's such a British story.
Yeah. No
it's
signal.
madness. I mean, so people were unable for like potentially a month, unable to contact lawyers to get any legal advice.
Okay.
Which, I mean, like, first off, your thoughts on this at all?
I'll be honest. I'm learning. This is all news to me. I knew of it. I knew of it. This Jamaican one. I was kind of hoping we might not cover it. I said, you said it's going to, and I went, what to Jamaica? You went, yeah. I went, that's enough from me.
I've given some words out.
Yeah, that's it. I've confirmed the story. I've confirmed that it is in fact a story.
Jamaica is a country. We
Yeah,
can
I
confirm this.
know of it. Yeah.
Unlike journalism, I'm not paying you, and it's certainly not by the word. So you're absolutely fine.
But no, it's yeah. Please keep telling me about it.
Right, should I step in it?
Yeah,
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's different aspects to this. First of all, it's worth saying that the successful legal challenge that got some of the people off that plane is, again, being used by Downing Street sources, Dominic Cummings,
Yes.
as an argument for curtailing judicial review, or as we could also call it, curtailing the law. In terms of the issues here, I mean, this legislation has been knocking around for quite a while. I think it was brought in under Labour, in fact, which, if you know Labour's record on immigration, isn't a huge shock. In terms of the material nature, I mean, the thing is, the way they're defining these, I don't know if eligibility is the word, but the threshold for deportation, I think, seems to be something like at least a year prison sentence. Now, in some cases, you're looking at potentially murderers, rapists, etc. In some cases, you're looking at drug offences. Those are probably not going to be drug possession for personal use, but they could well be, and they are indeed, a drug possession with intent to supply.
Yes.
Okay.
Whether one considers that to be in and of itself a serious crime, warranting deportation, particularly given the cabinet's record of taking drugs,
I love it.
is debatable.
It's where they supply. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting what you mentioned about Jamaican government. I mean, one of the issues that arises is also that a lot of these people came to this country when they were children.
Yes.
Now, there's an argument about whether it is fair to deport these people to a country they basically never really lived in, or don't remember, or don't know anyone who lives there. This sort of thing. If they've been here for 25 years or whatever. There's also, I think, there's the response to that is often going to be, well, you should have thought about that when you broke the law. But what seems to me completely unanswerable is that if these people grew up here, how have they become Jamaica's problem? I mean, this is essentially a kind of fly tipping. It's similar with what we're doing with Shamima Begum. Where
yes.
we withdraw her
the Pakistani
Bangladeshi,
Bangladeshi,
Bangladeshi woman who went over
never
to the
been
ISIS
there,
bride,
yes.
When we've got these people with dual nationalities, we're withdrawing our nationality and saying, well, it's that country's problem. It's like Shamima Begum, I don't think it was even. She was born in Britain. I don't think she's ever lived in Bangladesh. No. And we say, oh, it's Bangladesh's problem. It's not She's not Bangladesh's problem. No.
Well, I mean, are we just strong arming for?
We're doing it for
the attention. Yeah, it's all headlines.
Well, hang on, actually, no. I want to correct that slightly. The policy is one which has a lot of public support and is being done for public support. I don't know that the government really knew that this flight was going to generate so many headlines and it was going to become this pinch point, this crunch point where you got the migrant campaigners.
Well, why? Well, this is it. Because why?
When it became a news story, the government certainly made the most of it.
Well, this is the detention agency, isn't it? Detention advice for the detention agency, whichever charity was it?
Detention Action.
Detention Action. Now, I've always had an issue with regards to things being done solely because they managed to get into the papers. There's so many stories that we've seen especially immigration stories. You know, people getting deported when they've been in the country for 30 years. They have children. They work for a university and everything else, and they're getting deported. It gets into the newspapers, and they get to stay. They go, well, there are thousands of these, or hundreds, say, of these examples that aren't on the fucking front page of every news story.
I'll give you an example,
Get kicked out.
I'll give you an example. I think late last year I did a story on the welfare system about someone not getting their... someone being on benefits, having their benefits cut to repay some old debt, which they were challenging. And I literally called up the press office for the Department for Work and Pensions, and they literally just said, yes, if you send us an outline of this woman's case and her contact details, we will have someone get in touch with her. And literally, this was the press office. Someone got in touch with her, and they basically rescheduled the debt repayments, cancelled, I think, some of the debt. And literally, I think the DWP press office is so used to these car crash cases, they have an actual protocol to deal with them. But if a journalist hears about it, it goes to the press office.
Well, that's it, and that is fundamentally fucking disgusting.
It's absolutely,
requiring
total dysfunction.
Yeah, requiring public attention to do something of worth. That you go, okay, right, we're fucked up there. It's got to go big, and people may look at us badly. Let's fucking do something about this. Should they go? Well, this is like 1% of all of the fucking ones you're doing at the moment. But with regards to the human rights and the policies and everything that's coming out, it goes back to our new Attorney General, Braverman. She, what she said, she's not a fucking fan of human rights anyway. She's a human rights skeptic, and she said in the past...
That sounds so reassuring.
She said in the past that that they've been taken too far, and that the cult of the individual should be tempered by restricting rights to those who have fulfilled their social responsibilities. That, I don't want to say fascist, but it does seem very fascisty. Yes, authoritarian, yes. Let's be nice and say this is...
I'll say Suella Braverman is someone who I think will basically say anything in order to advance her career.
You think that
does it.
Sorry?
That kind of statement does it. It advances her career.
In this fucking government,
she's found her wing of the party which will carry her forward. And I don't know. With some of these, sometimes these are some of these older ones like Bill Cash, John Redwood. They've been saying the same thing for decades. Someone like Suella Braverman, I don't even know what someone like Priti Patel, I don't know what she even actually believes. She will say anything. Priti Patel's just a sociopath, but these people will say anything.
Look, that's interesting. Do you believe that there are actually evil people in this world?
Oh, wow. Okay. Do I believe there's evil in the world? So I don't think anybody I've ever met, personally, I have gone, there is no hope for you. Anyone who I've met who I don't like, who I dislike, I've never gone, and you will never, ever change. I've always found a reason or something I think, or sort of seen a goodness in them somewhere. But I don't believe that there are people that genuinely... the definition of evil, I assume, is just I want to kill everybody, crush everybody.
Evil isn't just killing.
I can think of an evil person. I can even think of evil people. People who, when you go to like a Starbucks or a Cafe Nero or something, they order really, really fancy coffees that take about 5 or 10 minutes to make, and you're just stood there waiting to pay for your fucking chocolate brownie while this fucking twat wants to have their fucking frappa crappa macchiato shit.
I didn't realise we were including those people.
That is
I'll be honest, neither did I.
that is fucking Geneva Convention.
But no, here's the thing: when you say that, I had an idea in that queue, having been in that position, where it's like I want two queues. I want the pain in the ass queue, and I want the people who know what they want queue. But then that is quite... That's encouraging division.
I think that is a reasonable compromise to avoid a war crimes tribunal.
How about yourself? Do you think that there are actually evil people in this world?
In all seriousness, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
People I absolutely detest more than anyone else are sociopaths.
Well,
and politics is full of them.
Yes, this is the thing. I've had many arguments with regards to with people where I have said categorically that some people in politics, in the current government, they're not just kooky madmen. They are fucking evil. And when you get to the realisation, I think, that they're evil, and this isn't just about this is what they believe, they're actually evil. I mean, I'm not
They
even
all
sure...
think they're good.
Yeah.
They all think they're good.
Yes,
Everyone
but I
thinks
mean, I wouldn't even go with some of these people. Like, Thatcher is the big evil. That's what everyone goes on to.
Yeah.
I don't even think that Thatcher is as bad as a lot of the fucking people that we currently have.
You missed Thatcher.
I mean, people like Priti Patel. I think that there is an inherent badness about her and her views of I will do anything to get forward. And if you're willing to do anything to get forward, there is evil. If you're willing to do evil to progress yourself, then there is like someone like Dominic Cummings. I wouldn't say is necessarily evil,
Is he more of
but
an
I think
idiot?
he lacks anything that resembles a soul. And I think that
He has no humanity. Though.
yeah, he has no humanity, but I don't think that he's looking at going, well, let's just destroy people and everything else. Although that potential he may do, I don't know enough. Maybe he is evil. Maybe he is. Like Braver Man, time will tell.
Yeah, I don't think she's evil. I think she's. It's hard to tell because the thing, what I often find with politicians, I just see these politicians every time you hear them talking completely ridiculous, idiotic bollocks, and then you look at their careers and it's like, well, they can't be stupid because they've done this, and this, and I think what it is that when you've got people who, I mean, maybe I was wrong. Maybe Braverman is an ideologue because ideology melts people's brains.
Yes,
but that's
and maybe it's that. Maybe she isn't just saying anything to get it back. Maybe she's an ideologue, and then she almost it's almost like yes, she was, did very well in her legal career, but the moment you take this person into the political sphere, suddenly all recognition of nuance, all recognition of proportion, this sort of thing, just goes out of the window, and you just have because ideology really is basically a secular religious fundamentalism.
But it's when ambition goes beyond reality.
Ambition and reality are two different spectrums.
Exactly. So if you are so ambitious that you can distort what reality is and just go, well, I think you'll find that. I mean, like there was an interview with Channel 4 where Braverman was asked about the ERG, and she said, well, they would ask who pays for them, and she said, well, the public. She said, well, who's in there then? Oh, well, you can find it. Where can you find it? Well, we have the list. Can I have the list? Literally. And they go, well, you're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot. And I think that ambition has got to such a point.
Well, that's not stupid. That's not stupid. That's being dishonest.
Yes.
She knows exactly what she's doing. She's being dishonest in order to prevent scrutiny. But something like Boris Johnson, when Boris Johnson, during the election campaign, was going on saying there won't be a border, or any kind of checks in the Irish Sea. I mean, that's just him flat out lying.
Boris Johnson's thick as shit, and I am getting tired of people treating him like he's fucking intelligent.
But he was like, he knew there'd be a border checks in the Irish Sea. He was just flat out lying.
Yeah, of course he knew that there would be. But Boris Johnson is basically he's like a lump of smeg that someone's carved.
That's a lot of smeg to get into a lump.
Well, that's what happens when you go to Eton. There's a lot of it about, He never actually had a childhood. He was actually, he's like a golem. He's a golem of smeg.
But he's also very hard to be frightened of as well. That's the other thing. So when you say about all these frightening campaigns or these ideas he has, you look at him and you go, oh.
a
big part of it is that.
Yeah. So you go, he'll be all right. Just give him a little, just shake something at him.
This is a man who ruffles his hair before he goes up. But someone will come. He always have hair and makeup and fucking. But there's comedian Milton Jones.
Who?
Comedian Milton Jones.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pun.
Now, Milton Jones, as its hair, the crazier the hair, the harder he thinks the night's going to be.
Oh,
that's his rule. So
Yeah.
if he thinks it's going to be a fun night with a good audience, his hair isn't that bad. If he thinks it's going to be a fucking difficult night and it's not a particularly, so we say, going to be a good crowd that's going to be susceptible, hair up crazy. Straight away, give them something mad to look at and trying to go, oh, he's a funny man. He's a funny man.
It's
Let's
alternative,
go. And I think there's a lot to do with Boris on that aspect as well.
Have you got enough hair to do that?
Oh, I mean, what the fuck?
Oh, I love that. I love Hayden to sell out like that and do the woohoo wacky hair.
I also
hair.
wear hats on stage.
That's true.
Oh,
he
that
does
has same
wear
effect.
hats.
Same effect.
He does wear hats. Actually, yeah.
So the hair
cartoon.
matters not. And
This guy's a character. He's got a hat on.
He takes
Exactly.
he takes the hat off if he's struggling and hopes that it's got. He's got a bit of,
hey, hat hair.
is that the guy with the hat hair?
Yeah, if I'm struggling, which is why I've never taken my hat off. Am I right? Am I right?
People take that hat off to me.
I want to go back, if I may,
Yes.
to the thing you were talking about earlier in terms of the racism issue with these deportations.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of it comes down to what you consider to be racism. I'm sorry to drag this into the world of definitions, but I mean, in terms of is this just being done to black people? Statistically, no, it's not.
Yes.
But then again, racism, as we've seen with the Brexit debate, can be directed against white non-British people. If you consider that racism and discrimination is about unequal treatment,
Yes.
and there is a perfectly valid view that unequal treatment is discriminatory, then you are looking at racism, because if they were white British, then it doesn't matter what they'd done. I mean, I can't tell you why Rolf Harris hasn't been deported, but if they were white British, no matter what they've done, they're not going to be kicked out of the country, and lose their citizenship, whereas them being, having a dual nationality or whatever, even if, I think in some cases, well, I don't know if it counts if they're born here. I think it can. If they've got dual nationality, then they get deported. That's unequal treatment. That's discriminatory on the basis of nationality, race. So if you look at it like that, then it is. You could make an argument that says, well, at the end of the day, there is an overriding kind of, if you come to this country, then you have it's like,
Well, it's about the
like
law.
when Brits go abroad to Spain and they start making a mess of the place, there's a kind of view over here amongst people who look down on that, including me, who are like, well, you've gone to someone else's country. You're actually under an obligation to not behave completely terribly.
Yes.
Almost like being, almost like going to someone's house. You don't wreck the place, kind of thing.
Yeah.
School trip.
Yeah. So it depends how you look at it. But yes, you can make a case for it being racist.
Well, yes, and I always think that there's so many examples of racism in this country, discrimination, both on British and in terms of people who come from other countries. But especially with the Jamaica aeroplane, we're at a point where we haven't forgotten, and nor should we, what's happened and still going on with Windrush and the Windrush generation. And so I think that's one of the reasons why this particular story has caught so much traction. Because although, I mean, you are able to argue, and potentially quite rightly, that a number of these people, whether they were whether they came over at 2 or 7, there is an argument to be made that if they've become British citizens, then fine, they should be kept in this country. But if they're here and they're 30 or they're 40 and they've been here since 2 and they've never become a British citizen, they've never done anything like this, then they are not. They do not have the protection of being British. They've broken the law. You can able to deport these people based on what our law is currently, not whether or not the law is good or bad. That is a completely different argument.
You can defend literally anything if the law says it, and that's your only basis for it.
Well, this is the problem with a lot of law. A lot of people, well, not a lot. There are certain parts of law that are fundamentally wrong, but you can defend the, shall we say, indefensible off the back of just going, Well, that's the law.
Well, you can't morally defend it, really. I mean,
No,
that's
but-
not a moral argument.
Yes,
That's just
but
practical
I mean,
argument.
then you're looking at a completely different ball game with
I thought that was the ball game
deportations.
we were already been playing.
No, see, I wasn't talking about on the moral aspect, because the moral aspect becomes very different. Because if you're chucking someone away to a different country that they've never been to, then there's no moral argument to do that.
There is a moral argument to do that, but I would agree that it doesn't stand up.
Well, I mean, yeah, go on.
In terms of like deportations, is that happening more recently, or has that always been the case?
It's not always been the case. I think the
Yeah.
change. I can't remember when the law changed. It might have been 2007.
This is fairly recent
but it's been going
developments.
for a while.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that this, in terms of the way that these stories have a trajectory.
Yeah.
Because it's not unusual for there to be legal challenges around this sort of thing around immigration. A lot of the time, this makes the news maybe in The Guardian, for example, or The Independent.
Yeah.
I think what made this different actually was that I think it was Andrew Marr who asked a government minister about this, I think last Sunday, and that suddenly took it out of the realms of the what you might call the bleeding heart press.
Yes.
Of which, to an extent, I'm a part of that, and put it suddenly on the desks of the political reporters, who are really central to news agendas. I don't think they should be, but they are. And suddenly, this became a Westminster political story, and took on a much higher profile.
Okay.
Let's go on to. Sorry, did you have?
That's carry on. Sorry. Yeah.
I want to go into really an easy, fun conversation now. The UN Security Council this week discussed Trump's Middle East peace plan. Israel and Palestine. Let's have some fun.
Oh, fucking hell.
Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun.
Chester!
What do I think of the
Let's
Israel?
start with
Finally, people want to hear what Chester Constable. I've always said it's perfect.
Solve the
perfectly
Middle East
simple,
crisis.
guys. It's perfectly simple.
First off, have you seen Trump's peace
His
plan?
Middle East peace plan. No, I have not seen this. No, not for the Israel-Palestine bit. Anyway, I know that we're unhappy. In terms of the Middle East, I knew that Russia and Turkey are falling out over Syria. That was the bit I was paying attention to.
I mean, Syria is what's happening in Syria now is rough. Fucking
And that's
rough.
what the papers have been. Mate, it is rough. Just comparing Syria to like Magaluf.
Imagine it going into fucking Syria. It's like,
That
comes
is a
across a
hangover.
mass grave. Man, that's rough.
Imagine a hangover, but worse, and that is Syria. You know what I mean? Imagine a hangover and no cafes open.
You heard it here first. It is rough.
For the record,
mate.
I disagree with that. Let me have that on the record.
You disagree? What,
Disagree
you
with
think it's good?
disagree with Syria. What's happening in Syria as well. I disagree with the fact that it's rough. I think it's very manageable.
I disagree with both what's happening and any further films in the Hangover franchise.
How about yourself? What, I assume you've had a look at his piece plan.
I saw it go past. To be honest, I didn't pay much attention. The reason being because nothing's going to happen with it.
You don't think so?
Palestinians aren't going to agree to it.
No.
I mean, what I think it's doing is basically what it's doing is accepting what Israel wants, which is. So you've got, the background, to be brief, and I will be brief, because otherwise my brain will melt. Basically, you have the Israeli annexation of Palestinian land, Gaza Strip and the West Bank in, I think, 1967.
Yep.
Plus the Golan Heights. Now, Gaza was, quote unquote, handed back to the Palestinians in, I think, 2005, although it's not remotely free. It's still under this sort of constant kind of blockade and monitoring, and it's rife with poverty. Whereas the West Bank, Gaza doesn't have a big place in Jewish history in that region, whereas the West Bank does, because that's sort of part of the historical kind of Judea-Samaria, which the most hardcore Zionists believe in, the Jewish homeland as including this land. And so what's been going on for a very long time, and I'm not an expert in this, so in case anyone is watching this, and is furious,
For you, Mrs. Hayden, let me make this.
and is furious about this.
People do watch this. Not a lot, but there are people, and they thoroughly enjoy it because I am a fucking star.
Right, hey, if I knew people were watching this, I probably would have said I've never heard of Israel or Palestine, and just taken it the safe way.
I mean,
hey, why don't we follow this up with a discussion on trans rights? But
I fucking love Israel Palestine.
But the Israel Palestine,
cannot get enough.
What the Israeli government has been doing for a long, long time is encouraging more and more Jewish settlements in the West Bank, trying to create what's called facts on the ground. The idea of, all these Jewish settlements are now well established. You can't dare us to rip these up and hand these back. That's been a very deliberate strategy. And what this new plan does is basically accept, these are the Jewish settlements; those will stay Israeli, and the Palestinians can have the little bits that nobody wanted.
I mean, the new peace plan is
and the
basically
Palestinians won't accept that.
It's a two-party state, not how anyone in the fucking in the UN wants it. How the majority of from Europe to other Muslim countries, and what the US a little while ago wanted, which is a two-party state based on the borders that were done before the two-state solution before the 1967 war. Sure. So we go back here, and what this peace plan does is go, you know what everything is at the moment? We'll have that. Also, Palestine, your state, isn't technically a state. You still have to do a lot of rules over here. It's awful. I mean, you're quite right to say that it's not going to get anywhere because no one's going to fucking agree for it unless the US really used like every ounce of their fucking power to get people to do it. Okay. And then
even then it wouldn't happen.
You reckon?
I just don't see any. I mean, what's in it for the Palestinians? I mean, it's basically the status quo. What's in it for them?
So, as always, when we talk about Israel and Palestine, we talk about the Israeli government, not the people. There's a big difference.
Although this stuff, I think, is quite popular amongst the Israeli electorate. I mean, facts being what they are. But I mean, this is what happens if you've got a conflict zone. In a long-term conflict zone, the two sides do not like each other, and that is not simply at the top. That is going right down, and that's just the reality of it. It's why these things take so long to resolve. I mean, I'm not being pat. That's the reality of it.
Yes.
It is same in Syria, same in Sri Lanka, same anywhere.
Chester, you brought any news stories?
I did indeed. So
go on, chuck one away for us.
Chuck one away for us, sure. Just a bit. So they have sent a spacecraft up, and it's going to get as close to the sun as we have ever been. They're going to take photos 42 kilometers away from the sun, apparently. And I have lots of theories about what those photos will show.
Hang on, did you say 42 kilometers or 42 light years?
42 kilometers.
Light years?
42 kilometres?
Yeah,
of course it can't be light years. That's ridiculous. But 42 the reason I say this, I know this is ridiculous, but 42 kilometres sounds incredibly close. I mean, that's going to set it on fire.
Yeah, that's how close.
I think that's I think it's.
That's why I made the news.
You head. I mean, every time you head towards the sun, you've always got a chance of being set on fire.
Are you making a joke about the newspaper?
No, no.
Making the joke about, is that Icarus? Was that Icarus? Was that him?
Oh, it was Icarus.
Icarus, yeah. That's what he said to Icarus at the time.
I hope they called this project Icarus.
Yeah, they
just
really
really
I can't remember what the spacecraft was, but I was thinking about the photos that come back, and I'm like, what if, because it's the closest we've ever been to the sun, so what if these photos show, like, the Microsoft Windows logo or something on the sun? What if something happens that completely just shits on science? Like, what if it's a stove? What if there is a stove at the center of the sun? And all scientists have to go, oh well.
Who's doing it then?
NASA, I assume.
NASA?
Yeah.
You assume?
I assume it's NASA.
Who else is going to be doing it? The British Aerospace.
Let's go.
Burkina Faso.
I saw that the other day on a Question Time. It was one of those viral clips of some bloke going along going, we put a man on the moon. We fucking didn't, mate. That weren't us.
Oh, yeah. Roman, I thought you were going to be in general, but the Brits didn't put the man on the moon.
I don't know what you're doing, mate. You're giving...
We're 12 minutes over. Fucking hell.
You should have done that fucking
I didn't
before.
fucking bring anything.
Yeah, but I mean, you're doing fucking hand signals like I know what you're doing. This ain't baseball, mate. We didn't do a fucking thing beforehand saying if I do all of this, then that mine. Normally, you do 10 minutes and let me know that there's 10 minutes.
He was downstairs getting a drink.
He was too busy on his fucking phone. Useless fucking bastard.
You know what you need? You need
You
the
just
just.
can't get the people anymore.
You need the just a minute little bell at the
Right.
end of the last. Oh,
I don't care if you've got any other news. We don't have time.
that's fine.
Do you have anything to plug?
Do I have anything to plug? I don't have anything to plug.
No?
My ad, no.
That's something that would only happen if I was actually employed.
Do you have any articles you want people to read?
Oh, fuck it, it's not worth it.
No.
I feel like you're going to rip my head off, actually, if I do this. But the Lions
We
Den.
literally don't have time, mate. Go to the Lions Den in Shaftesbury Avenue. You may have to or may not have to pay.
You don't have to pay. You don't have to pay to do the Lions Den anymore.
And I don't even have
Get there for
time to
5:30.
do the other news. And there was some fucking interesting shit as well. Let's see if I've got anything. UK universities are using gagging clauses to stop students going public after they've been sexually assaulted, bullied, or with poor teaching, because they're dreadful people. Michael Gove will take the political lead on the government's upcoming constitutional review, so look forward to workhouses. Something about being poor isn't good. Cayman Islands.
Breaking.
Research shows. That
Don't have time for this!
for banter. No banter.
Cayman Islands is to be put onto the EU blacklist for
We also
tax
got death
havens.
kills people. Starvation.
And the
legs
government
hurt.
is to appoint Ofcom as the internet watchdog, so we're going to start censoring the internet. That could be quite an interesting conversation,
Censoring the
but,
internet.
But
we
it
didn't have
won't be
time.
because we haven't got time.
I want to thank these people. I meant to say like, share and all of that bollocks now, but you do you and try to make this successful for someone. Thank you, goodbye.